Q&A. I feel like it's been ages since we've done this, and I'm very excited to do another one here on YouTube. Now, we'll give it just a few minutes before we start answering questions. And I was thinking a lot in the last few days about the outlier theory. And the idea is with every population, you kind of have this bell curve, and you have outliers both on the low side of things and on the high side of things, or on the overachiever side of things. And for every population, there is that outlier group. Why can't it be you, right? Why can't it be me? And I think that a lot of this channel is really looking to help you achieve that. And in my opinion, I think muscle and lifting weights really is the fountain of youth. Time marches on. There's nothing we can do about it. No one wins the fight against Father Time. But what we can do is we can build muscle, we can stay strong, we can stay fit, and we can increase our health span. We can be those outliers. So let me know what you think in the comments below. I just love this theory. Why be normal when you can be exceptional, when you can be one of the outliers? All right, we already have quite a few people on. Hello, Navanil. Hi, Madalena. Hey, Sherry. Sherry's in Newfoundland. Hello, Sandra. She's in Sweden. Hello, hello. Hi, Vera family. So nice to see you. Hi, Seiji. And as always, we'll answer questions as they come in, and feel free to ask me anything. Obviously, I don't have the answers for everything, but if I know the answer, I will help you out. The idea here is to bridge science and everyday life. You know, we have tons of studies, tons of research that's coming out, and it can be rather confusing. I think the best way to do it is to take everything with a grain of salt, to try it for yourself, to create that N of one experiment, if you will, to see if it works for you. Now, if something works for you, then you put it in your toolbox, if you will, and you have these tools to go to when you want to build muscle, when you want to recomp, when you want to lean down. So it's just kind of nice to take the research, try it for yourself, and see what works. And understand that there are thousands of ways to do something, maybe hundreds of ways that appeal to you, and then it could end up being dozens of ways that actually work for you. And again, it's just nice to have those in your back pocket when you need them. Hello, Victory. Hi, Lorena. Lorena's in Plano. Hi, Rinkel. Indian Hills Hiker, hello, says, thank you for sharing your videos with the great exercises. Both my dad and I watch all the time. Thank you so much. Always great, and always find ways to polish up on form watching you. I really appreciate that. Misha says, I didn't know you did live sessions. So the goal is moving forward to do them probably once a month. And what I'll do is next time I'll create a post and have that live for questions. So if you have a question ahead of time, we can do that. And I guess the benefit is twofold for that. You get to post your question, I get to look at it, and then if there's ever a lull in the Q&A, then we can go and talk about that at length. So it's nice. I think it works for everybody, and it's always good to have stuff to talk about. Otherwise, I'm going to go on a diatribe about random stuff. Show how strong your biceps are, please. They're relatively strong. I haven't been doing really direct arm training in quite a while, so that's the goal moving forward, is to just put a little bit more mass back on my upper body. You know, it's one of those things. So if you don't know, I had a full tear of my Achilles tendon on August 5th of last year. And I was lucky. I ended up getting surgery on August 7th, and I'm still recovering. So, you know, I look at my legs now, and you know, my right leg, which is the non-injured leg, is really strong. It's, you know, it's still looking pretty good. And the left leg is kind of sad. You know, it's a little bit flabbier to me because I don't have that muscle. So, you know, it's been interesting thinking about ways to incorporate more unilateral training, more mind muscle connection, especially with injury. Sometimes those nerves don't come back for up to a year. So I have my foot is hard to gauge the feeling in right now. So, coming back from that has been a challenge, possibly the biggest challenge of my life. So if you're going through an injury right now, know that it's going to be okay. You're going to learn new ways to train. You're also going to develop a new connection with your body. You're going to polish and perfect your form, find exercises that work for you, and ultimately you'll come back stronger than before. And right now I'm jogging, but my goal is to run again. And I don't want to just run, I want to sprint. I want to, it kind of goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning, become an outlier. There are expectations, I think, for every age category. And I think that those expectations need to be lifted, that we can be fit, healthy, strong, fast at any age. We can build our ideal physique at any age. And this is aesthetics and athletics. You want to be what they call show and go at the same time. So Jenna Lynn asks, is it possible for a 370 pound morbidly obese female to eventually become a bodybuilder? So Jenna Lynn, yes, anything is possible. So I think the most important thing for you is to get to a healthy maintenance lean body weight and stay there for 6 months to a year. So what you would do is take your time, start lifting weights, and I think looking at the process, starting out with incorporating some healthy routines, right? You don't want to do a complete overhaul right away. Maybe you start with walking. That's going to help with burning calories. It's going to help get you some cardiovascular exercise at the same time, and then lift weights maybe once a week or twice a week. If you can do twice a week, even better. Don't even focus on the diet. Just think about getting a little bit more protein. And for the first month or two, this is all you're going to focus on, is getting consistent with lifting, learning the basics. If you don't feel comfortable with free weights and you have access to a gym and you can do machines, you can work with a trainer, even better, because here you're going to set up a healthy lifestyle for years to come. And so while you think about the stage as that end goal, that great achievement, you want to think about beyond the stage. You want to think about obviously winning that plastic trophy, but the trophy that you are building is the one you are going to wear with you all the time. So when you walk into a room, people are going to notice your cap delts, they're going to notice your quad sweep, your posture, even the way you hold yourself changes when you lift weights. And a good rule of thumb is about 1% of your body weight loss per week. So you're looking at about 3.7 pounds loss per week, and you may do it kind of in a stair-step fashion. So you might go on a diet and be in a caloric deficit for 6 to 8 weeks. Then you may go back to maintenance for a little bit just to kind of rev that metabolism, get rid of any diet fatigue, and generally recover from any aches and pains. Then you're going to go back into a deficit and understand that your body is going to change over time. So the theory, the application, everything must change. Exercises must change as your body changes. But it's really exciting, and when you give yourself enough time to do this, and when you get to that maintenance level of lean, set your sights then on a competition. And you'll have that time to allow your body to reset. Your metabolism is going to reset, hormones are going to reset to that new metabolic set point. So do it in a way that is healthy, that is going to limit the amount of rebound that you experience post-show, because understand that, if you have the propensity to kind of eat a little bit too much, then dieting really restrictively is going to really fire up that instinct to eat more. It's a physiological response. So we kind of have to understand that and work with our physiology instead of against it. Lots of tongue tires today. Be Strong asks, for building muscle, how many exercises per body part? So this is going to vary dramatically. For me, if I'm looking at shoulders, for example, I may train them twice a week. I might do 4 exercises per session, maybe 3 to 4 sets per exercise. So you're looking at 12 to 16 sets per day, and that's 24 to 32 sets for the week. I like quite a bit of volume. So, you may find that you can do 10 sets and do really well. You're looking at maintenance at probably 3 or 4 sets per week. So anything between that, and if you're looking to train glutes, for example, you could go up to 50 sets per week and get really good results. So we always want to start with the lowest amount of volume to elicit those changes in the muscle. And that way, as you go through a training block, you're able to add volume over time. If you start with a ton of volume, you may not recover. And then where do you go from there in 12 weeks, right? So I would say start with, maybe 15 to 18 sets per muscle group, and then move up from there. And the idea too is that on your first degree exercises, or the exercises that are really contributing to your main goal, you want to really lift heavy. You want to stay in kind of the safe zone of reps. So, over 5 reps. My magic number is like 8 to 15 reps. Some people love 10 to 20 reps because it's great for hypertrophy. You can go relatively heavy on a 10 rep set, but you can't go heavy enough most of the time to cause injury. So we're always walking this line of working on building strength. So you can add in some exercises where you're purely doing some strength and you're in that 3 to 5 rep zone. Understand that the chance of injury is higher on this one. So you maybe want to choose exercises that you're very proficient in, very comfortable performing, and then you can add in some aesthetics as well. But if it's purely aesthetics, you're looking in that 8 to 20 rep range. So hopefully that helps. And again, this is going to be based on you, how well you're recovering, how well you're eating. If you're eating well, then you should recover better. If you're sleeping well, you should recover better. As we get older, recoverability tends to decrease a little bit. So focusing on quality more versus quantity, and lifting to close to failure for every set, that's about 1 to 4 reps from failure, is going to go a long way towards ensuring that you get that hypertrophy, get those gains that you're looking for. Misha says, I've been inspired by your competition journey and have now done 3 bikini shows after turning 50, and I love the preparation and the shows. That's amazing. I'm so happy for you. Yeah, it's one of those things that if you love to compete, or if it's in your heart to do, get on stage, just do it. If it's something that you don't want to do, the thought of competing, the thought of eating food out of Tupperwares and the spray tan, and really getting to a low body fat percentage is not appealing, then train for your own ideal. I always loved competing, and now it seems I'm kind of in between that bikini and figure again, and I don't see a physique on stage that I look at, and I look at my body and think, okay, this is something that I want to achieve, or I really want to train for. The fire for that right now isn't there, but the fire is there to build my own ideal, right? So there's so many different whys, if you will, and you just have to find the why that speaks to you, that ignites that fire within, to see what you can accomplish, to build beautiful 3-dimensional delts and width across the upper body to make the waist look super small. So you have so many different ways that you can train for strength, for hypertrophy, for endurance, mobility, etc., etc. The point is find something that moves you, and you'll get moving, and you'll stay moving. Sandra says, I just turned 40. I've always had easy to burn belly fat. on diet, you name it. But that was 20 years ago. Now I have a different headspace and trained for longevity. Yeah, that makes sense. You know, something to mention, as we get a bit older, we can become more insulin resistant. So sometimes, not necessarily changing your caloric intake. Let's say your caloric intake is 2,000 calories. Instead of changing that, you would just keep protein the same. And what you would do is think about your carbs and fats being on a sliding scale. So you would just reduce your carbs. And as you reduce your carbs, you're going to bump those fats up a little bit to make up for that difference. So you have the same caloric intake, just a little bit less carbs. And that can help with solving the belly fat issue. You know, a lot of it as we get older tends to be hormone related, but you know, we can certainly do that. I was thinking about having a guest on, you know, perhaps a doctor who can help us with this, because you know it's a lot, and understanding how the body changes as we age can be really effective in just making sure you're able to achieve your goals and maintain that physique that you really have worked hard for, and you know you want to keep it through the years. So Zoe says, I would love to get more information on mind-body connection. So mind-muscle connection is something that a lot of bodybuilders, myself included, have worked on. The easiest way to do it is to look at what I call mirror muscles. And the mirror muscles are just the ones you can see when you're training. So they're on the front of your body. This would be like your front delts. This would be your biceps. As you're doing a biceps curl, you can not only look down and see the biceps working, but you can also place a free hand on that biceps and you can really feel the muscle working. You can feel your quads working. And the goal here is to be able to initiate the force and effort from that muscle. And as you get more proficient in it, you can actually isolate different parts of the muscle. And EKG studies have shown this on high level bodybuilders, that if you're doing a squat and the researcher says, really focus on your glutes on this squat, they were able to recruit more glute fibers in that particular exercise. So as you work through the mirror muscles, your mind muscle connection is going to get stronger. Now, when it comes to the back, when it comes to the glutes, our cues are going to be important. So for the glutes, for example, when you're going into a squat, really push through the heels. Try to get below parallel. Add some pause reps in. Go lighter. Go lighter. Go slow. And sometimes switching to single leg exercises can be really helpful. Now, for the back, something that really helped me was getting a full length mirror. You can go to Walmart, they're relatively cheap, and put it in your bathroom. And you want to put it in such a way that when you're looking in one mirror, you can see your back, you can see everything move, as you flex, as you pretend to do a lat pull down, as you pretend to do a row, as you squeeze your shoulder blades together, as your shoulder blades come up when you extend your arms upwards. So what you are going to do is go through all of these different movement patterns, watching your back move. And then you can also, of course, take a free hand and pretend to do a lat pull down and engage that lat and pull. This is going to go a long way towards helping you build that mind muscle connection with a muscle group that you can't see. And as soon as you get that connection in your back, it becomes easier to feel the rear delts. It becomes easier to feel the glutes, the hamstrings. So let me know if that makes sense. I could go on and on about mind muscle connection. It's something that, you know, a lot of times it requires that introspection. It requires quiet time. It requires just you inside your head, inside your body, and getting to feel how the muscles feel when you're contracting them, when you're moving. And that also will help with flexing. And that's another way to work on my muscle connection, is really, you know, flexing. You can sit here, for example, and I can, you know, make the lats pop out. You can do fun party tricks and freak out your friends. Indian Hills Hiker asks, do you have any good tips on sleep? I have a horrible time sleeping. My diet is perfect, only caffeine once a day, early morning. I don't know if I'm overtraining, possibly. I stop eating at 6 p.m. daily. Okay, so when you mention overtraining, this of course is going to impact your sleep. Do you have something that you can track your heart rate or heart rate variability? Typically, if we're overtraining, our resting heart rate is going to be elevated. So let's say, for example, your resting heart rate is 55 and you wake up and it's 60 or 65. You know that you're probably pushing a little bit too hard and it's time to ease back on things. And then also understand that there's pushing too hard. We get to the point of overreaching, and then we get to the point of overtraining. And muscles, you can feel when they're sore. You can feel when you're fatigued. The central nervous system, it's really hard to tell. So if you have brain fog, if you lack motivation, trouble sleeping, if the weights feel heavier than they should, these are all signs that you might be heading towards overtraining. And also know that with the central nervous system, it can take up to twice as long to recover as the muscles do. So if you think that you're heading that way, then backing off from training and really focusing on that quality versus quantity can be helpful. That being said, do you know if you're a slow or fast metabolizer of caffeine? That may have something to do with it. Working on a sleep-wake schedule can be helpful. So for example, going out in the morning and making sure that you're getting that daylight as the sun is coming up, that can help really solidify your circadian rhythm. As we get towards sunset, switching from overhead lighting to lamps, that's another good way to cue your body for sleep. A hot shower can also help, or a hot bath. Cutting out electronics an hour to 2 hours before bed can be really helpful. A lot of times we are on our phones, we're always connected. An email will come in at like 8:30 at night, and then you are bothered. You're not necessarily going to reply, but it's on your mind, and now you're thinking about work. So if you're able to develop a habit, develop better sleep hygiene habits, switch from your phone to reading a paper book, for example, that can help as well. Then we have to look at your room. Make sure that your bed is comfortable, the room is dark, the room is cold, and it's quiet. And these are things that sometimes can be overlooked, and it sounds very simple, but having all of these in place can be really beneficial for sleep. Lastly, you can look at a melatonin supplement, magnesium. These can all help. GABA possibly can help as well. And then with the magnesium, you would look at magnesium glycinate and magnesium. I'm trying to think of the other one. Three. Okay, we're back. Are we back? I don't see the timer going. Okay, we're back. Don't you just hate those spam calls? I can't block all of them. I'm sorry about that. Okay. Tony says, I want to lift for growth. First time, 56 years old. Need to reverse diet after years of lifting aerobically. Also, how to find someone to analyze body symmetry or a chart list math to do. Okay, so when it comes to your body symmetry, if you will, one of the greatest ways to do that is to look for a DEXA scan. And you can find them sometimes on Groupon. They're about $100. Sometimes you can get them for less, like I said, if you can find it on Groupon. But getting a DEXA scan is a really great way to not only see where your muscles are, see the muscle distribution, your lean body mass, but it can also tell you about visceral fat. So, if you have any of excess visceral fat, it's good to try to lean down, minimize that. And, the symmetry aspect, it will allow you to see, okay, you're carrying predominantly muscle, a lot of muscle in your lower body, not as much in your upper body. Maybe you have size in your upper body, but it's not as much muscle as you think. So it's a really great way. And I found too that a lot of ladies who want to do wellness, for example, and they think they have huge muscular legs, when they diet down, they don't have as much muscle as they think. So getting that DEXA is really a great way to establish that baseline. And also you can do it every 6 months or so. So you can train, really work towards lifting for growth and then get another DEXA scan in 6 months and see if it's been effective. Vieira family says, I'm having trouble with my arms. I've lost 96 pounds so far, and my biceps and shoulders are looking good. But my triceps, I can see definition, but when I have my arms down, there's a slight overhang of fat above the elbow. Okay, so there's a slight overhang of fat above the elbow. What exercises do you recommend? Okay, so you've lost 96 pounds so far. Let's take a minute to really celebrate that and congratulate you on all of that hard work. So it's amazing, and you've done really excellent work so far. Now, when it comes to building triceps, if you can see the definition and you have a little bit of excess fat, there's not a lot we can do about excess skin, for example. With the excess, if it's excess fat, then continuing on a caloric deficit can help with leaning down that area. Understand though, it's not necessarily going to, we can't wave a magic wand and say, okay, I want the fat to go away from here. It's going to come from wherever your body decides to shed it from. That being said, you can look to exercises like dips, close grip bench press, or maybe a close grip push-up. These are your compound movements that are not only going to help build the triceps, but you're going to build shoulders, build chest, and really build everything around the triceps, which can really help with kind of plumping that area out and getting rid of the excess skin. Now, when we're looking at some cosmetic things that we can do, the results are very minimal. So what you can do is dry brush. That increases circulation. That can help with very modest skin tightening. Red light therapy can help. Cruciferous vegetables and HIIT, believe it or not, can help. There is also some research that shows autophagy can be beneficial for kind of clearing out some of these cells. So that's another way to tighten up the skin. Now, when it comes to autophagy, there are a lot of, like fitness grifters now. Everyone's wearing those like blue light blocking glasses and saying that this is the only way to do it and buy my supplements. So there's a lot to weed through. You can accomplish autophagy, yes, through fasting, but also being in a caloric deficit. Autophagy is not some magic thing that happens after 24 hours of fasting. This is something that, again, you can get to by being in a caloric deficit, curtailing your last meal a few hours before bed, allowing your body that time to rest, digest, clear out some of these senescent cells, and ultimately work towards tightening everything up. So it is going to be, I would say, a 1-2 punch, but it's kind of that 1-2-3 punch of training and making sure you're getting enough protein, being in a caloric deficit, so that's eating less calories than you burn, and maybe you want to try dry brushing. It feels really good. It's nice for kind of flushing out lymph and improving circulation as well. And you can also do a caffeine cream, so like a lotion, that's going to give you some temporary skin tightening benefits as well. Becky says, I've recently added sprint intervals into my training. Haven't done this in decades since my track days. Very humbling. Yes, I love it. Yeah, so your sprint intervals, that's going to be the ultimate way to burn fat, build muscle, and boost metabolism. They also did a really cool study on it that showed that it can reduce your metastatic cancer risk by up to 74%. I was reading from Dr. Rhonda Patrick. She had released something that said that it had those benefits. And that's just incredible, all right? So we have the ability to really change our physique, improve our metabolism in a short amount of time. The only drawback is it's hard. Now, if you don't want to sprint, and I don't recommend sprinting for people who don't have a background in track and field, I would recommend high intensity, low impact training. So get on the assault bike, go all out on the assault bike, go all out on the rower. You've got elliptical, stair climber, even sprinting hills can be good. It's still going to be some impact, but the sprinting hills, what that's going to do is it essentially shortens your stride. A lot of the sprint injuries come from overstriding, and if you've ever tweaked or pulled, heaven forbid, torn a hamstring, it is incredibly painful and it's going to put you out for a while. So we kind of again have to go back to that balance of being able to train for power and strength and get those sprints in, but get those sprints in such a way that it's not going to sideline us and cause us to be injured and not be able to train for hypertrophy. Hello, Kenneth. How's it going? Let's see. Victory. Yes, I said plastic trophy. At most of these shows, that is what you're going to get is a plastic trophy. So do with that what you will, right? It's one of those things that, gosh, I absolutely love bodybuilding, but I love my health even more. So, understand that getting to the stage and that one moment that you have on stage is not the end all be all. We have to really understand that, yes, you can look 100% at your show, but there is a next day. There is that strategy, or there needs to be a strategy for compensating for that physiological response from dieting for weeks, right? It's like pulling a pendulum. You are really restricting. The more you restrict, the longer you restrict, the further back you're pulling that pendulum. And then after the show, you're not on a diet anymore. And where does that pendulum go? It swings. So we want to get back to baseline as quickly as possible. And I think that, a lot of coaches now, a lot of athletes don't talk about that part, the after part, understanding that you can start anywhere with the goal of getting to stage, but it doesn't have to be tomorrow. It doesn't have to be in 6 weeks. It can be next year. It can be in 6 months. It can be when your body's ready. Nicholas asks, how do you feel about the idea of core day, working only the core for about 45 minutes to an hour? That sounds exhausting. So depending on what your goals are, right? So you want a stronger core, you want to be able to do a human flag exercise, for example. If this is a true priority for you, then go for it. I will never say you can't do a core day. You can absolutely have one, and you think about a lot of people training abs, they're not really training core. So if you're training core, you are inherently building strength in that area. You are decreasing your risk of injury, for example. And if it's something you really want to do, go for it. I'm not going to say don't do it. You know what? Don't do. Don't do those weighted side bends with a 45-pound plate. Tell me if I'm crazy. That's maybe the one exercise where I don't understand the benefit, unless you are maybe training to lift a heavy suitcase on one side. All right, we're gonna scroll down here. I think it was getting a little bogged down. Hello, Flora. Anna asks, are there different DEXA scans? I got one that was normal, but that was it. So the DEXA scan that you'll get, you should talk to them in advance. Ask them if they're going to give you your body fat percentage, if you're going to get a printout of your muscle mass, if you're going to get a printout of the muscle mass on left versus right side, your adipose tissue, if it's going to tell you where you're holding your fat, where you're holding subcutaneous and visceral fat, and it should also give you your bone density. So if you did not get those numbers, then I don't know if it was a DEXA scan or, maybe they had those details and they didn't release them to you. Ms. Chief says, do I have to give up casual lifting in order to have that Pilates lean legs look? Don't care about lifting heavy, but barbells can be fun. So if you want that Pilates lean legs look, I think that's a combination of having a nice amount of muscle mass and a relatively lower but still healthy body fat percentage. We also have to look at genetics, right? So genetically speaking, if you already have relatively lean legs, maybe you would just add in some accessory work. You would add a little bit more curve or shape to your legs, maybe some more leg extensions, some leg curls, for example, some calf raises, some hip thrusts. But there's nothing wrong with casual lifting. But when you mention casual lifting, to me, it makes me think that there's not a plan for progression. And that can be a problem if you're trying to reach a specific goal. So when someone says toned, for example, I think a lot of trainers are like, you can't be toned. To me, toned means, again, that certain level of muscle mass and a lower level of body fat percentage. So you're able to see the muscle and you're able to have that multi-dimension, that separation. And let me know if that makes sense. So you don't necessarily have to lift heavy, but you probably do need to get close to failure and make sure that you're continuing to push yourself. You can go up to 30 reps on stuff. And I know with Pilates, they typically will do body weight. They're no joke, those workouts. I got on one of those machines. I thought I was gonna die. And there was this little lady and she was absolutely ripped and she was just zooming through stuff. And she's like, all you're gonna do is you're gonna bring your leg up. And, I thought I was gonna throw up. It was hard. So, higher reps, isometric. So it's not always about training heavy per se, but you do have to continue to challenge your body and then also look at your body fat percentage in general. If you've got higher body fat percentage and genetically you carry more fat in your lower body, then you may have to do that combination of calorie deficit diet and switching up your training just a little bit. Hello, Bob Long asks, any suggestions for an old man like myself who wants to work more on the legs, but knees are a serious issue. I wear the 7mm knee sleeves. They help me, but not enough. I know knee surgery is coming. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. So a supplement that could help is hyaluronic acid. Maybe look at some foods that have hyaluronic acid. That can help to lubricate the joints. But if you're close to surgery and everything hurts, I would suggest doing Spanish squats to start with. And if you're not familiar with Spanish squats, I think you can Google it and see. And I know I've got a couple videos on a Spanish squat. You would need a resistance band and a sturdy object to secure it to. And you're going to secure that band right at about knee height, maybe a little bit lower, and then you will step through the band facing where it's secured. So that band is going to go behind the back of your legs, just below the knee. Now you're going to back up to where you feel that resistance, and the resistance should be somewhere between a 50 and 80 pound band. So you do want to have one that's has a little bit more, gusto to it. And you're going to have your feet 1 to 1.5 times shoulder width apart. Keep your upper body upright, and you're going to squat down. As you come up, actively think about pushing the backs of your knees against that band. You can always add weight. You can do a goblet squat with it. This is one of the best exercises for knee health and really strengthening the musculature around the knees. So, we can't do much for, that bone on bone if that's what you're experiencing, but the knees, the shoulders, these are joints that we can strengthen. We can strengthen the shoulder girdle, we can strengthen the muscles and the tendons and the ligaments around the knee and give yourself some more stability. So try that Spanish squat. That can be really helpful. Machines can be helpful as well if you have access to those, because they're going to do the stabilization for you. If you have the ability, sometimes the single leg exercises can be helpful. Maybe something that you're doing more of a hinge on. So maybe something more like an RDL, for example, where you don't have so much knee bend, you're doing more in the hips. Let me know if any of those would work. Ah, Snow White, that's sweet. Thank you. Crystal says, I just want to say I love your channel. Oh, I love you, Crystal. Thanks. My problem is snacking too much. I got to stop doing that. I feel like I'm starving, especially after arm day and cardio. Okay, snacking, yes, snacking can be tricky. Now, I think that we can kind of mitigate this a little bit, right? So a lot of times snacking is not necessarily it doesn't have to do with the food. It can be boredom. We can be in the habit of doing it. We can be distressed or agitated. But a lot of times it just comes down to habit. We get in front of the TV, we automatically want to have something that we snack on. Nature abhors a vacuum, is the old saying. So you don't want to just take this habit and rip it away. You don't want to take it away and not replace it with something. So, if you feel like you can't get away from snacking, maybe do some natural air popped popcorn, like the kind that you put in a popcorn machine or on the stovetop. And then you can add some light salt to it if you want, just, whatever. Add a lot of salt, I don't care. But add some salt to it and know that I think it's like 4 cups is 100 calories. So you can replace that. You can also do something like sliced cucumbers, sliced celery, if you want that crunch, and that will give you something for your hands to do. What my sister did is she took up crocheting. So instead of stuffing her face, she's doing something with her hands. If you're on a diet, if you will, you may not be eating enough earlier in the day. Then as we get towards nighttime, you have willpower on one side and instinct on the other. Those scientists are saying now that there's no such thing as willpower, but we'll just go with you have discipline, and your discipline throughout the day is going to have you drink a black coffee for breakfast, maybe you have a yogurt, you're gonna have a salad for lunch. These are both really sad meals, by the way. And then you're going to work out, you're probably not gonna have a lot of energy, and then you get to nighttime and willpower discipline wanes as the sun goes down and instinct takes over. Instinct says, girl, you have not fed me all day, I'm starving, give me some food. And it's going to crave pizza, pasta, really high calorie, rich stuff, because your body thinks it's starving. Whereas if we start the day, and then you're going to wake up the next day not hungry because there's too much food too late in the day. So we have to break that habit. And if you have that habit of kind of snacking too much at night, wake up the next day and make yourself eat breakfast. Make yourself eat a good solid lunch as well, and always have snacks on hand. People make fun of me because I always have beef jerky or a protein bar or something that I can snack on to take the edge off in my purse at all times. So I haven't gotten to the point of having crackers or anything like that, like my grandma used to have in the purse, which she always have like crumbs in the bottom. But make sure that you always have some kind of snack with you. And then when you get to nighttime, you'll have a good dinner. And if you still want to snack, then have something low calorie, and then come up with some other hobbies, come up with another activity as well. So if you find that if you sit in front of the TV, you're always snacking, do something different. go read, for example, clean the house, water the plants, whatever it might be, go for a walk. That can help as well. Another thing that can be really helpful is not having a snack basket or box on your counter. Make it 2 steps away. So you want the food to be invisible. Maybe it goes in a wicker basket inside the kitchen cabinet in the top, so you don't see it. And it's not something that you can walk by and you can grab a little snacky and then go sit down and watch TV. It makes you put in work and you actually have to physically go out and hunt for this stuff to find it. So, and then understand that we go back to physiology and psychology. If you're telling yourself that foods are off limits, it makes it really tough to stay on track. Whereas if you know that, hey, I can have this burger anytime, or I can have this bloomin' onion anytime, I just choose not to have it now. I want to nourish and fuel my body. So understand that you don't have to put things off limits, and that can be really helpful towards making sure that you don't have that scarcity mindset. So we work with that. We work with the physiology, make sure that you've got enough food, and understanding that we do develop these habits, we do develop these patterns, and we can break them over time. Those patterns are always going to be there. So understand that you can, from time to time, slip up. Doesn't make you bad, it makes you human. And I'm telling you this from the heart. I was in college anorexic. My coach told me that if I lost a little bit of weight, I would high jump higher. And I did, but I went from 145 pounds to 115 pounds. And when I finally saw a picture of myself, I was so emaciated. I got to the point of, everything hurts. And when you're, 19, 20 years old, it shouldn't hurt. Then I saw a picture of myself and realized how skinny I'd become, and I developed bulimia. And that was a tough few years. And, there are times where I feel like I'm triggered and I want to go back to that. And there's some times where I will go on a food bender and I'll eat too much, but I'll wake up the next day like it's a fresh day, and I'll make myself eat breakfast and make myself get back on track. So it's not bad. You're human, and we work with what we can work with, and we have to understand that there's certain triggers that we have. And again, it's not about the food. A lot of times it's about control, and it's important to develop new healthy habits and to be kind to yourself. And I say this with love because I had to do it, and I was forcing myself to do it and beating myself up for so many years when the answer was just to love myself. And I want the same for you. I don't want you to have to go through the years of pain and struggle that I went through, and everything's going to be okay. Proof of that, proof that you can do it. Susan asks, do you have a protein bar that you recommend? So I used to love Quest bars, and I noticed that they changed the ingredients. They changed hands. They recently sold, or I guess it's been a few years since they sold. And so I can't eat them anymore. They give me a crazy bad stomach ache. So I switched to a 1 bar, and 1 bars are, I think all protein bars are not great, right? But if it's an emergency, and your choice is between a protein bar and a honey bun, a protein bar is probably better. So I do like the 1 bars, and I love beef jerky. I feel like you can't go wrong with that, aside from the sodium content. But if you're sweating quite a bit, then, we actually need that salt. Beth asks, how much, if at all, do hormones influence how you approach your training regimen? Also, thank you for your amazing workouts. Thank you, Beth. Okay, so hormones, this is something that we can definitely do like a separate Q&A for, because I feel like it is something that we can just talk about. Right now, everything is showing up as fine for me, and I think that working out is part of that. But I do understand that as we get older, the first hormone that tends to dip is that progesterone. So, if you're having trouble sleeping, maybe you're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning, then, that is a progesterone thing right there. So, my training is based more on recoverability. And I used to be able to train 7 days a week. Now I'm 4 or 5 days a week. And if I have a particularly hard training session, if I go too hard on a Monday, because I love, taking the weekend off and really hitting it hard on Monday, and sometimes I can't walk on Tuesday. And it's not that serious, but it's a lot. And so, just trying to come to terms with the fact that I can't train for 2 hours. I can't have a 2 hour leg day and then show up and do back or shoulders or chest the next day and do the same thing and keep doing that. So, really becoming choosy with the exercises. And I think the channel has reflected that as well, because I know some of the earlier videos looking back like 5 years ago, we would we would have like 8 to 10 exercises per workout, and that is insane. So, really just understanding recoverability more than anything. I don't train according to my cycle or anything like that. And I do recognize that if I'm experiencing cramps, for example, the last thing I want to do is go work out, but that's the best thing I can do is go work out. So it's important to know that if you're not feeling good, focus on movement. Just focus on stretching, for example, getting some steps in and getting some active recovery in. Every day doesn't have to be 100%. And that was another mindset that I really had to adopt, and know that as long as you're doing something, you're going to continue to make progress. So, I guess that's part of growing up, where I still managed to tear things because I'm hard-headed. All right, so we'll take a couple more questions. And let's see. Hello, Radhika. So nice to see you. Thank you. Sending you love as well. Angela says, so glad to be on your live. Glad you're here. How would you train a 50-year-old woman who has been training for 2 years with not great visible results? Okay. So, Angela, why do you think you haven't gotten great results? Typically, when we look at training, especially if you're training with weights, there's something called newbie gains. And newbie gains can last for up to 4 years. And this just means if you're new to lifting, you're going to see like exponential results. So within a few weeks, you should see changes in your body. If you're not seeing changes, this could be a function of, I would say, maybe 3 things. The first, you're not eating enough, and you may not be eating enough protein. So make sure you're getting about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, and make sure that, I always say make sure you have carbs as well. Muscles, especially for building muscle loves carbs. Carbs are also protein sparing. So you have the ability to eat less protein if you're eating more carbs. Now, you also want to make sure you're eating at around maintenance or a little bit more if you're looking to gain muscle, but typically you can recomp, and this is gain muscle and lose fat simultaneously at maintenance calories. So make sure diet's covered. Next, progressive overload. I love that we all love to throw this term around, and let's simplify it. So this week, for example, I'm going to do 5 body weight push-ups. That's all I can do. Next week, maybe I do 5.5, or maybe I do, a force negative where I get up on my knees, or I finish with knee push-ups and I push myself a little bit further. The week after that, I'm going to continue to push myself a little bit further. And then maybe someone puts a 10-pound plate on my back, so I have a little bit more resistance. So you want to make sure that you're continuing to challenge your body. The muscles, the body is amazingly adaptive. And if you're doing the same weight that you were doing when you first started, you're not going to see results. So that could be it as well. The last piece of the puzzle is sleep and recoverability. I have to throw stress in there too. Maybe we'll say lifestyle. So, lifestyle. If you are stressed, you're gonna have a hard time gaining muscle. Cortisol just loves to eat muscle. It's one of these things that it's going to, your body is helping you stay alive because it's taking what's in your mind and feeling it like it's real life. So that mind cannot differentiate between events in real life and what's going on in your head. So if you are stressed, cortisol is going to kind of mobilize energy from muscle stores because it wants to save some fat for the long desert ride, whatever it might be. So, cortisol is really bad. And sleep, if you're sleep deprived, you're not getting enough sleep, then that can also hinder gains as well. So make sure that you're firing on all cylinders with the diet, with the training, and with the lifestyle. Hi, the Bullet Scotty Show 2.0. Jason says, wow, I can't believe it. I eat peanut butter every night. Yeah. I mean, you can eat peanut butter every night. You can eat whatever you want every night or every day. It's one of those things that's energy balance, right? So I eat ice cream pretty often at night, but I manage to stay within that energy balance. Make sure that I'm getting enough protein and I don't eat it right before bed, right? So it is like 6:30 and I might go to sleep at 9. So, oh, you want to stop eating peanut butter every night? Don't buy it. Switch to almond butter. There are things that we can do to offset these cravings, and peanut butter is one of those things where you've got fat, sugar, salt. It's not quite the umami flavors, but adding that salt and the sugar to peanut butter really makes it is, you can't avoid eating it. And then when you actually measure out a portion of peanut butter and you see what 2 tablespoons is, you just want to weep. It is such a small amount, and we can't have that. So a couple of things you can do, like I said, you can get almond butter, not buy peanut butter. Get the peanut butter in the single serve packets. Those are annoyingly expensive, but it's going to help keep you from eating too much peanut butter. So hopefully that helps. All right, thank you so much for hanging out with me, for asking great questions. Anna asks, do you still provide one-on-one? I do, yes. So if you go to erinstern.com, it'll have all of the information there. I'm so proud of you. Always know that you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. You can be the outlier. For any population, we have that bell curve shape, right? And at the tail end of that bell curve are the outliers that are seeking excellence and striving for the best, training with purpose and recovering well, making sure that their lives have meaning, and that can be you, that can be me. So keep up the great work. Oh, the Bullet Scotty Show. Thank you so much. Sending you love. So just know I'm rooting for you. I love you. I'm proud of you. And whatever you have accomplished, and I've seen so many accomplishments in the comments, take a moment and appreciate how far you've come. You lost 96 pounds, for example. Take a moment and really relish in that, appreciate that. Oh, Michelle, thank you so much. And think about, we all want to achieve this beautiful physique, but at the end of the day, it's that health span. It's about being healthy, being strong, and just being able to just rock it in daily life and being happy. So keep up the great work, keep training hard. I'm so incredibly proud of you, and I love you, and I'll see you soon. Thanks again. Bye.